Hi, I'm Kate from Sewing to Overlocking and welcome today. Today's a bit of a preparation tutorial. So for my That's a Wrap skirt. So you might have purchased this pattern and making it at home, or you could be coming to do a workshop with me. And what I find is a lot of places where I teach, there's just not the space to have 8 to 10 people actually cutting fabric out all at one time. So if you come with everything cut out ready to go, then it will make life a lot easier, and we can get straight into the fun stuff of actually putting the skirts together. So the skirt is made entirely on the overlocker. You just need a sewing machine to top stitch your ties down. So it's a great project to improve your overlocking skills and makes, I think, a pretty cool skirt at the same time. So let's talk fabric. So cotton voile is a bit of a favourite of mine. I've made lots in cotton voile. So this beautiful print, you'll see with the cotton voile, it's a lovely lightweight, and you need something that's going to be able to be manipulated when you're stitching across the rows. So if it's a too heavy a weight fabric or too dense, it's just not going to work well, and it's also not going to sit softly. So we want that lovely sort of soft drape because it is an 8 gore skirt. If you're concerned that your fabric's a little bit sheer, it's 2 layers. So we have an underskirt and an overskirt. So that combats if it is a little bit sheer. So summer weight fabric, cotton voile is beautiful because it's soft and breathes really well. I've got that print as well that I've made, which is gorgeous. And then of course you can go with a plain voile as well, and that way your stitching becomes much more of a feature. So this one that I'm wearing, I've made in rayon because it's winter here in Melbourne, and I wanted something that I can wear with tights and boots, and yeah, something like this works really well. I was very happy with how the rayon was to sew with, and how well it went together. So remember to pre-wash all your fabrics. So before you cut your fabric out, we want to wash it, have it all dried, ironed, ready to work with. So don't skip that step, because particularly if you're working with cottons, you don't want it to shrink, and yeah, that would just be tragic, all that time and effort that you've put into it, and then the whole thing's going to change shape. So take the time to purchase your fabric, wash it, so that you'll be ready when you come to class. The contrast fabrics. So I like to work with denim. So denim's a nice strong fabric, and when it folds over, we get this great contrast of the reverse side of the denim that's then folded over to the front. So when I'm working with denim, I just cut one waistband. If you wanted to work with a linen, which is what I've got with this skirt here, or this one here, I like to do 2 layers in the waistband. So if you're going to do that, you might need to just purchase a little bit more fabric to allow for that. But with this one, I used the printed linen on the front, and then I backed it with the plain fabric. Whenever you're doing this sort of process, remember, wrong sides of fabric go together, because we're stitching on the outside, and then our stitching becomes our feature of our garment. So not the traditional way of stitching and putting garments together, where we always do right sides together. We're going wrong sides together if we're going to add a layer to this panel. I also like to use a medium weight interfacing, and that just helps with the softer fabrics, just to help keep them and give a little bit of shape and hold everything in place where we want it to be in place. So as far as threads go, I like to use a woolly nylon, because what I find when you're doing this type of work, if you use just a polyester thread, your stitch is going to end up being gappy because it just doesn't fill in the gaps nicely. So woolly nylon really helps to make the stitch a lovely feature. And you can work with something like this. So this was a Designer Threads woolly nylon. So you'll get this anywhere that sells Baby Lock in Australia. So it's a Japanese woolly nylon, beautiful quality, and a reasonably good colour range, all in plain colours. Softlock is the Wonderfil version, which is a woolly poly. Gorgeous range of colours. I think there's about 60 colours or something. So if you are working with a print and you're trying to match colours, Softlock is seriously amazing. Ceraflock. So Ceraflock is the Metla version. It comes in all sort of your basic colours and a few different ones, but not a massive colour range, but great quality thread. Maxi Lock Stretch also is another one that comes in plain colours, really great thread. I just don't have one to show you, but it comes on sort of the larger cones. If you're looking for a variegated though, Gutermann do Bulky Lock. So Bulky Lock is a fantastic variegated. It also comes in plain colours, but again, just your basics. So your black, reds, navies, cream, white. But if you are looking for variegated, I love the fact that the variegated on these, it's not your stock standard blocked variegation where you can see the colour change regularly. This is a bit more random and works beautifully. So the threads go in the loopers. So you're going to need two. So one for the upper looper and one for the lower looper. And then just a polyester thread for the needles. So when you're looking at your threads, so with this one, I had my lavender woolly nylon on the upper looper and the darker purple on the lower looper. That means that I colour match my upper looper thread with my polyester needle thread. So I had a lavender needle thread in. My next project that I'm going to do is this gorgeous cotton voile. It's been all washed and it's all ready to go. I've just got to actually cut it out. But with this one, I've chosen these two soft locks. So if I had green on my upper looper, I'd match that with a pale green polyester thread in the needle. If I had the pink, then I would obviously pop the pink in the needle. So yeah, I think they're going to look quite stunning. So I don't know which way I'm going to go yet. I'll have to have a bit of a play and work out what's going to actually stand out. I like my stitching to stand out, not to be hidden. So yeah, I like it to be a bit more of a feature. So this one I used the Ceraflock on that dark grey, and I think that picks up the charcoal in that skirt really well. So we've talked fabric types, we've talked thread. Let's talk pattern and cutting out. So if you're doing the class or you've got the pre-printed pattern, you'll get your cover, which has got your pictures on the front and all your sizing and information on the back. And the pattern will come on one sheet. So it's simply folded it out. And you will see you have all your different sizes marked there. So if you're doing the PDF downloadable version, really important that before you print it, check what scale your print is set to. So I printed one out this morning thinking, yes, I can talk about it. And I didn't really think about it, just hit print, and it was set at 96%. So obviously then my pattern isn't going to be the correct size. So really important that you make sure the scale is set to 100%, and then your pattern will print out to the correct size. On the last sheet, there is a scale square. So that's 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. Once you print it out, just measure that to make sure that you've printed it to the correct size, because otherwise once you cut your pieces out, it's not going to work. When you're printing, you've printed this out, it's 5 sheets, and you get a little map that shows you how they go together. All of the pattern sheets have a border around them. So when we're putting them together, we're actually going to fold one of the pieces over. So I like to work from the bottom up when I'm sticking these together. So these are my 2 bottom pieces, which if I check my little chart, I've got C1 and C2. So I've got pieces C1 and C2 here to work with. So the first thing I want to do is join these side seams. Now if I just sort of try and overlap them, I'm probably not going to be very accurate. So you're going to take one of those pieces and we're going to fold down that center piece along that border line. So I'm going to fold that in so it sits nice and flat, like that. And then we're going to join those two pieces. So that's going to overlap and sit to the border. And you have little notch markings there, a little triangle. So we're going to make sure that they meet, like so. And your size lines meet as well. Grab your trusty sticky tape. And I'm going to pop those together. Okay, so that's the bottom part of my gauze put together. I'm going to then join B1 and B2, which are my next two pieces. And again, we need to do that fold. It doesn't matter which one you fold down, as long as you fold one side and then match it to the printed line on the other side. And again, matching your little notches. So we stick those two together. Once you've done that, we can then fold that bottom fold and stick it to this one. And then of course the top piece attaches. So once you've done that process, your pattern piece will look identical to this. Once we've done that, we've got to work out the sizing that we're actually going to make. So there is measurements on either the back of the pattern, or if you've got the print at home version, it's the first page. So it gives you for your body measurements. But one of the other things you can do is have a look at the waistband. So each size has the waistband cut, obviously, to fit. I like my skirts to wrap well. So, you know, you walk out on a windy day and you don't want your skirt blowing up because, you know, that can be a bit revealing. I'm just going to, hopefully I'm decent enough if I pull my jumper down, it's not going to shock anyone too much. So the skirt ends up sitting like this. And if you measure that the waistband's going to sit from your right hip and overlap and tie up, then that will be the appropriate size for you. So that's another way that you can have a look at working out your sizing for your skirt. Just lost my AirPod there. There we go. Put that back in, tie myself up, make myself decent again. And so that's another way that you can work out sizing, or you can go from the body measurements on the pattern. But you can see it ties up really easily. I'll just do the bottom one and that'll be enough to keep it in place for me. Okay, so once you've worked out your sizing that you're working with, we're going to cut out 16 gauze. Yep, 16 of these pieces. So I like to use like a medium weight interfacing, like a violin, and I place that over the top of my pattern piece, trace around it and cut it out. So it's really important that you transfer your straight grain line. So this long arrow here, make sure you transfer that to your pattern, because we need to make sure that when we lay the pattern pieces out, that they are sitting straight on the straight grain. So once you've traced that off, and I'll often trace out sort of 3 or 4 of these, because it means that when you're going across your fabric, it's much easier and much faster to cut out if you have enough that sits across the width of your fabric. So usually on the fold, if I was to grab this now, the thing that we need to think about too is your fabric, if it's directional. So this skirt, where's this one? This is sort of an all over print. It's not really directional, so it doesn't matter which way I cut my gauze for this one. And the same with the animal print one that I'm wearing. It was sort of an all over print. This one that I've cut for my daughter, and I haven't put it together yet, but I will soon, is just a spot. And so she's having that with a black linen, and it's a bit of a random spot. So again, I can cut my gauze anyway, sort of on the fabric. But for something like this one, you want your flowers to all be running in the same direction. So if you choose that is the direction, so with that one pointing up, then I need to cut all my gauze running that way, with the top of the gore up here running down. So you'll have to, if you are using a directional print fabric, there is an allowance for that when you're purchasing your fabric, so make sure you get enough so that you can cut them the correct way. So I always fold my fabric right sides together, and then I can lay my pattern piece on top. This is quite a narrow fabric, this voile that I'm working with. So if it's a wider fabric, as I said, I'd like to have more than one pattern piece so I can lay them side by side and then just do a much faster cut. If you're wanting to work with a rotary cutter, it's actually the perfect size pattern piece because it will sit on a large cutting mat really well. 28mm rotary cutter works fantastic for cutting out clothing because you can get around really easily. Or of course you can pin and use scissors as well. So whatever works better for you. I quite like the rotary cutter method. I find I get a bit more of an accurate cut. So we're going to cut 16 of these babies, and then you'll cut one of your contrast fabric. So whether it's the denim or your linen, and that becomes that front panel here. And then you need to also cut your waistband. So if you're using your linen and you want to double it up, then you're going to cut 2 of those. And you'll also cut one of an interfacing, a lightweight woven interfacing or medium weight woven interfacing, I feel works best. And then we need to cut our ties. So, but you can choose. So with this one, obviously made my ties in black, so they're sort of hidden in the wrap. With this one, what did I do with this one? So my black and white one, I used the white fabric to create the ties. On this one, I used the printed fabric for the ties. I could have actually used the plain up here if I wanted to hide that a little bit more. So you might want to think about the fabric that you're using, because you can use either your contrast or you can use the print fabric to create the ties. So that's completely up to you. Once you've worked out which one you're using for the ties, we need to cut strips that are 2.5 inches wide. And that's where rotary cutter and ruler works really well if you're confident working with those. And I think it is, from memory, if I can find my sheet, 3 strips by the width of the fabric. If it's narrow fabric though, you might have to cut a couple more. You're going to end up with 8 pieces to do the 8 ties that are 12 inches or 30 centimeters long. So as long as you've got those cuts, which are 5 centimeters or 2.5 inches by your 12 inches, but all that's on your pattern sheet anyway. So once you've got all those bits and pieces cut out, then it's just on to the fun actually constructing the skirt. Now with this skirt too, it is done on a straight waistband, which with some of my other ones, I actually wear them more down on my hips, and a straight waistband on my hips for my shape works really well. But we all have different shapes. So this one, when I made it, I thought I'm just going to wear this one a little bit higher. So I've done a side dart here, or just run from the top. So once I've finished it and I'm pinning my ties and working out how my skirt's going to finish, I've just created a dart at the sides here, which gives it a little bit more shape into my body. If you've got a sway back, you might find it's actually better to do your darts into the back. So if that's something that you're looking at doing at the end, pop your skirt on and just see where it's sitting out. If it's sitting out here, or if it's sitting out more into your back, then you can create sort of a couple of darts into the back of the waistband to give it more shape. So I thought that was a better option than trying to create a shaped waistband, because we're all different shapes, and working with a flat one to start off with, we make our skirt and then you can adjust the fit by putting the darts where they're going to work for you. So I think I've covered just about everything. I look forward to seeing you hopefully sometime soon in a hands-on workshop. But if not, if you have any questions before that, kate@sewintooverlocking.com is my email, or you can get in touch with me through my socials. I'd love to see what you make with this pattern, so send me a photo or share it and tag me in it. I would love to see what you create. So until I see you next time, stay safe, stay well, and happy overlocking.